What if I told you I could steal your business and your entire social media identity? I could do it all right in front of you, and I could do it legally. Literally, you could go to the cops and there's nothing they could do for you. I could go and take your entire life and there's not a single thing you can do about it. True story. Now, don't worry. I'm not going to do this to you, but I could. And I'm going to tell you exactly how so you could prevent other people from doing this to you. Now, this is called business hitmen. Not the type of hitmen you see in the Hollywood movies that kill people, but they basically kill your financial life and your social life. It has become a phenomenon over the last 5 years. It is massive on the deep web. And I've got a lot of contacts over there. Obviously, at Privacy X, we work with people of all types, from billionaires to celebrities to people trying to build ghost businesses and ghost lives. And some, not exactly characters I'd want to invite over for a coffee. I'll tell you that right now. And there's a lot of people on the dark web. There's a lot of stuff in Vegas where I spend a good chunk of my time. DEF CON, one of the biggest hacker conventions. And there's a lot going on with the business hitman sector, but you won't find a lot of people talking about it except for people who've already been hit by this phenomenon. So we're going to break it down. I'm going to show you exactly what you can do to make sure this doesn't happen to you. There's a few simple things you can do right now today. I'm going to give you actionable steps for today because I don't want to hear this happening to you. And this is a $1 trillion industry. There's no cap at how big this can be. In Operation Don't Get Hit by the Hitmen. All right. You got me. It could be hit women if you want to. It could be hit men or hit women. Whatever. The old Me Too movement be coming after. There's got to be hit women. Okay. Whatever. So here's the thing. Regardless of the gender of the person stealing everything from you, this isn't a real serious phenomenon. And this is another reason. So the reason I want to talk about this today is I had a whole bunch of people in yesterday's video, 10 new laws on crypto. And I'm going to be breaking down a bunch more. That stemmed countless emails. You guys came flooded in with the emails. So but people ask me, Cody, is there a bigger reason to become a ghost beyond just crypto? Of course there is. Businesses and your personal identity. I've been talking about that a lot, but I had a really good conversation with somebody who I'll leave nameless, but they brought up some good points, and I wanted to talk about business hitman and what you can do. So let me explain what it is real quick, and then I'm going to give you some action steps to make sure this doesn't happen to you. Some stuff you can actually start implementing today. Very cheap, very effective. Some of it's free, but it's stuff you can do right now. So the first thing is what business hitmen are. And I wasn't joking. I was being a little cheeky in the intro, but I wasn't joking. I could do this because think about it. When you sign up for your quote-unquote online life, okay, most of it you just sign up for. Now, a lot of it is guarded via email and phone number. The worst ways to guard anything, the two things that are completely zero privacy. There are no fully private emails. I know some of them claim to be encrypted, and I've done videos on Proton Mail and Tutnota and some of these other encrypted emails, and I've talked to you about their massive flaws, their massive weaknesses, and how easy it is to infiltrate a lot of those emails. I've also talked about phones, and phones are junk. I mean, phones are not even meant to be private. It is easy to capture phone calls and text, especially if you delete them. A lot of places see deleted text as basically public record, as scary as that is. So these things are not good if you're using two-factor authentication. For most people, that is their security level. Now, we're going to break down security levels in a second, but what a lot of people do is they'll actually create what's called ghost domains. And so it's a duplicate domain. And this happened to me a couple years ago. Now, obviously, they were messing with the wrong person. I was able to fight it. We were able to counter it. And I was able to actually figure out the person's true identity. Now, I didn't extort them, although I could have, but I blew up in their face. And there are people where this blows up in your face. But for the most part, I talk about in my very first podcast that I did on the Privacy X podcast, how 10 years ago, I basically lost everything due to identity theft. Well, this isn't identity theft. This is identity theft on steroids because people have figured out how easy it is to pretext phones and to pretext social media companies telling them that you are said person, which is scary how easy it is because most social media companies don't have any real information on file. And so you can actually pretend to be said person. You can take over their email account, email the social media provider, and they will give you details. You can change the master password, and there's nothing you can do. And it goes down a rabbit hole, right? They become you on Facebook. They become you on Instagram. if they take it over. And what's happening to a lot of people is they're taking over crypto accounts like Coinbase and things like crypto.com. It's why I tell you guys to use hardware wallets, because the crypto companies on record between all the exchanges last year lost 91 billion in crypto. Now, Coinbase had a big leak and they actually paid a lot of their customers back, which was pretty cool of them to do, because I guess legally they didn't have to, but it was their fault. But 91 billion was lost all in all after the paybacks last year throughout the exchanges, because people taking over accounts, and most of it comes to taking over their identity on their phone. So even if you're not taking over their social security number or their birth certificate, you don't necessarily need that, because most people's income and most people's life is built in and around online. Basically, your phone devices, your computer devices, etc. Most people will have a device like this, and it'll encompass the bulk of their life, what they do. And so you think about that, and so you make a clone site. And so what are some other ways people can do this? Well, one clever way is you go to the domain registrar. All right, so basically for all my domains, I've created what's called a domain honeypot. I purposely want people to try to go to my domain register because I've created what's called a tripwire. Now that's pretty advanced for this video. That's something that I can get into in a tutorial if you guys are interested. But basically, you can create tripwires for your identity. A lot of people have asked me, Cody, why is your Who Is registry not private? Oh, it's a honeypot. I'm hoping people try to hack in, because they're going to get what they got coming for them, and they're going to have identities and malware logged in. Similar reason I do with some of my my information that I put out there. It's all a trap, and people try to get it, and it blows up in their face. So, but that's getting a little advanced. What can you do? Well, Who Is registry is fine, but really what they do is they go to your registrar, which is really easy to find, because it's not even just the Who Is register, but you can actually go into the source code and find out the domain. You could find out the hosting. A lot of times you can even find out from the hosting site, the register. And then what they can do is pretext, say that they're you. And if you don't have two-factor, they can actually take over your domains, which is really, really common thing to do. And even GoDaddy's admitted there's nothing they can do about it. Tens of thousands of domains are lost to this strategy every year, and it's really easy to do. Then once they got your domain, they could take over your entire business. They could take over your social medias by pretexting the companies, and to take over your email if your email is on your domain, which most businesses have their domain. So it'd be like Sarah at XYZ oilpainting.com or whatever it is. Well, then you've got their domain, which gives you access to their email, because register. And what you do is, even if you can't get into their email address, you can report their email through their domain, because you can take access to their domain a lot easier than their email. And then you can pose as them, contact the social media accounts, take their social media accounts. And then what you do, what the goal is to redirect all the traffic, which is crazy. And then you utilize all their traffic, and people will take over like marketing pixels from Facebook, from Instagram, from LinkedIn, from TikTok and YouTube and Google and Bing and all these big marketing sites where people run a lot of traffic for advertising. They can basically divert all your traffic, and they could clone your entire site and take you over. And this has been a phenomenon where people are making really good money online, and you can take over their entire business and refunnel everything to a clone site, and the customer would never be the wiser, and they can siphon off all of your business that way. And what they do is they build a legion of clone sites, and that way, before you know it, you're actually marketing for them. They're taking all the business, and then next thing you know, you're completely SOL, because what happens is you're in a situation where you're running everything through the clone site, and then they're taking over all your social media, they're taking over all your emails, and there's really nothing you can do. There's no recourse. So how could this be avoided? And we could go deep on this. Like, there's 1,000 ways they can get you. Like I said, crypto is a popular one, even merchant accounts. So people say, well, banks are pretty well locked down. They are, but what do you tie to your bank? Do you go directly from your bank? No. You use something like PayPal. You use something like Square. You use something like Stripe. You use, even some of these, money send services, right? Now, I recommend having your own merchant or utilizing multi-merchant strategy, but most of these merchants are pretty good, provided you have a business structure in place for your actual quote unquote business name. And that's why we teach our clients how to become ghosts, so you don't have to deal with this, because they're not going to be able to get to your real information. And what I help my clients do is create these honeypots where you don't have these problems, right? So if somebody goes to get into it, that's exactly what you're doing. And then you get their stuff, you're able to track them based on geolocation, based on Well, there's a lot of different back working that can be done. Now, a smart person is going to use things like Whonix. They're going to use potentially even TOR, which TOR we can still track through exit nodes. PrivacyX, we've got a couple bots that we use to track exit nodes, similar to what the CIA does, but the CIA does it on a much, much, much bigger stage. Well, I guess it'd be the NSA, but let's be honest, everyone knows the CIA is actually operable. They just do it under the guides of the NSA, right? So they use that as their blanket to be in operation. But to say they're not operable in the United States is a joke at this point. So this is kind of the strategies they use. So you could do a watered down version of that because it's certainly not as big, but it's the same similar concept. And so having two-factor authentication is key. But what a lot of people do is they use your phone. Don't do that. Don't use your phone. Now, I guess two-factor with your phone is better than no two-factor, but don't do that. Don't use two-factor on your phone because it is too easy to pre-text a phone. I talked about on my very first podcast exactly step-by-step what happened for me. It was about an hour podcast, my very first episode 1 on the PrivacyX podcast, and I go in depth to how I lost everything. I had identity theft, and I literally lost everything. I woke up one morning, and I didn't have 2 cents to rub together because I put too much faith in the quote-unquote system. And so I won't rehash that here because I did the entire story in depth on the podcast, but the problem is two-factor. So you can't use your phone because my whole problem was the phone got pretexted. They took over my phone. When they take over your phone, they take over all the apps. So it's basically like your phone, your SIM card is ported to their phone. And when you do that, you take over all the apps. Now, these phone companies like T-Mobile and Verizon are really easy to pretext, and this happens in the tune of millions of people per year. Now, what a lot of people are doing is setting secret passwords, which I highly recommend you do if you don't have one. That's the first thing you could do is if you use a phone carrier. Now, ideally, you won't use a phone carrier in that same regard, and you won't be using, well, I mean, really, you won't hopefully be using two-factor on your phone. What you should be using is a hardware option. What a lot of people use is the app option. And again, if they take over your phone, even if you use some of these like Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator, which people swear by, if they take over your phone, they take over your Authenticator and they can get in. The best thing you can do is utilize a YubiKey like this. There's a hardware, and I did a full detailed video down below in the resources on PrivacyX Project. I've got the ones that I recommend. There's a few specific ones I recommend. I recommend you go check those ones out because they're not all created equally, but this is exactly what I use. I got a handful of these, and this is a hardware option. So unless you physically get this and physically get a couple other points of data, so there's a password, and it's almost like having 2 keys for a safety deposit box or a safety drop box where you've got to have multiple points of contact, which is ideal. Also, if you have a phone version and then you have this version, then if they do the phone version, you'll get notified, but they won't have the physical version, so you'll be able to change it before anybody gets in. But what a lot of people do is they do two-factor on their phone or they do two-factor on their app, and if they take over your phone, your SOL, and to take over and clone your email. I've gotten emails from myself quite a few times. From myself. You might be thinking, Cody, how'd you get an email from yourself? It's easier than you think to clone emails. Now, they weren't actually in my email provider, but there's cloning software. I think for the sake of this video and for YouTube, because I've already been suppressed enough times because I've revealed some secrets that YouTube doesn't like. I could talk more about this on privacyx.org when it launches. I can't really get into the really deep stuff here because it'll get me banned. But yeah, I mean, I've been... There's software you could use to clone. So I can email you today from your own email and you would know it. Now, it wouldn't be your email if you look at the hashes, but it's your email and it looks like your email. And I get emails from myself quite a few times. And I already, obviously, they're fake and they're spam, or I get emails from a person who doesn't work at my company, but it's somebody's name at one of my companies, .com or whatever. And it's common, right? Because there's a lot of things you can do. So what you need to understand, and you guys all know not to click on phishing or malware links. Obviously, that's something you learn in the 3rd grade. But what you got to understand is if you don't have a hardware option, this will most likely at some point happen to you. And it's not about, well, why would this happen to me? I'm not that special. It's the same thing with identity theft. It's not about being special. It's about you're available. You're a mark. Most likely nobody's targeting you. They're targeting the value, and your business has a value. Even if your business is doing $1,000 a month, that's a value that they can extort. And now it used to be People would extort your data or extort your business and try to get you to pay them. Now they don't even care about you paying them because they're just going to take it over, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can call the cops. You can call, they're not going to care. You can call the FBI. They're going to laugh at you. I mean, the FBI has the cyber crimes unit. That unit has never done anything ever underneath. I've talked to people who, I've got a few friends of the FBI, and they're just like, yeah, I mean, they get hundreds of thousands of requests a week. They handle like 10. Like, they can't do it unless it's like a national level crime. They just can't do anything. They don't have the manpower. They don't have the ability. And people are always reporting stuff to the FBI cybercrimes, and there's nothing they can do. There's nothing they will ever be able to do. And you can't prove it's not you, and you can't prove that most of the time this stuff is yours. And so to get any of it back is almost impossible. And if you do get it back, it takes absolutely forever. And it could have been solved by a hardware device that literally costs about as much as dinner. And that's it. Like, literally this right here could have solved all of your problems. So you guys know what my motto is: start a business, invest, take control of your assets, take control of your income, because things are going down the wrong path. We've got countries like Australia, and they want this kind of thing because it ushers in the social credit score. Again, it's a slippery slope. That's the problem with any regulation and the government getting involved. It's on you to take care of your business and to take care of your stuff. And this simple little device that you guys can check out on my site will literally change your life, and it'll give you so many options. Now, if you want a more detailed review and tutorial on this, I've done one here on this channel, and you guys can check that out. But also, the site that sells these, the Yubico, they actually have some really in-depth tutorials. Obviously, it's their product. I'm just a very happy customer because this has saved me a lot, and I've got several of these. But they've got a bunch of tutorials on how to use them. Very cheap, very effective, and a lifesaver. And frankly, even if they were expensive, it'd be worth it. But they're actually very affordable, and they're a lifesaver. And that alone can stop all of this. All the madness I'm talking about can stop about 90% of it just with this one device. The most important thing, though, is having no real information out there, being a ghost online. It's what we teach our clients at PrivacyX, and I recommend you check that first link out down below if you want to become a ghost both in your business and your private life, especially if you invest in crypto, especially if you have an online business, especially if you're alive and you have a pulse. Because with the way things are going with the social credit score, you're not going to want to partake in that. And it's the only way to not partake is to become a ghost now. Because once the Web 3.0 is in full effect, you'll have no chance. There's no taking it back. Right now is your last chance to take any information back, to delete your real identity from the internet and build a pseudonym. Because once Web 3.0 starts putting everything on the blockchain, it's too late. It'll be 500 years, and if we still have the internet, stuff will still be there. Right now, there's stuff from 2010 that you can't even find. Our caching system and wayback system is average at best. But with Web 3.0, it's all locked in. So this is why I try to always tell young people, if I ever had a chance to talk to, if I had a chance to talk to some school, some high school, the advice I would give them, sadly, most of them wouldn't listen to me because they'd be like, oh, Cody, how do we make a bunch of money like you? Or how do we buy a nice car? How do we live a great life? Or what's life like living in Vegas? Or what's it like, having a successful business? And that's great. And I could teach people all about that. But the one piece of advice I'd want to tell these kids, I wouldn't want to tell these kids step-by-step how to buy a Lamborghini. I'd want to tell these kids step-by-step how to protect their identity before they lose it. But that's not cool. That's not popular. They're going to want me to, tell them how to make $1 million. And that's great. But also I wish they would listen to also how to protect their identity, because the $1 million is going to be useless if you cannot protect your identity and where we're going with taxes. I mean, watch yesterday's video. Do yourself a favor. If you at all invest in crypto, you're going to want, those laws are no joke. Those laws are about as serious and serious gets, and it's only getting worse. And I've done a lot of videos on these steps that you could take over the last couple of months, and I recommend you watch them when you have some spare time, because I give you guys a lot of tips on what you can actually do in real action steps. And because these things are hitting hard. I'm getting these emails every day, and these things are hitting people hard. And if you don't take action now, it's going to be too late soon. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you guys because I've been getting a lot of questions on this. I think you should do that very soon. I think you should get a hardware authenticator. I think if you're using your phone, you should switch over to at least an app today. Like, even if you can't afford one of these, which again, these cost very, very little. We're talking about like dinner money, right? So it's not like you're spending hundreds of dollars or anything. It's, so whatever. It's up to you. Everyone's got a different financial situation. But I would start going down that path if I was you, because it's very, very important. And I would hate to I've had a couple clients come to me who've been in pretty rough shape, and it's hard to get these things back. It is very tough, and it's very easy to take them because these companies deal with millions of people, and they don't know who you are, really. You're dealing with the internet. It's so easy to be anybody on the internet. It's so easy to fake everything on the internet. So keep that in mind. So have an amazing day. Go all in everything you do. Take action, guys. Don't live in fear. Be prepared and take action. Be proactive instead of reactive. Don't be fearful, but be knowledgeable and educate yourself so you can live an incredible life, and don't let these people steal your smile. Appreciate it, guys. Go all in, and I'll see you in the next video.